Today's episode of In the Trenches is brought to you by System 12 Guitar Method. Sign up today at ryanroxie.com.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.
Hello, and welcome to another live stream episode of In the Trenches. I am your host, Ryan Roxie, and I'm going to dive right into it because we've taken a couple of weeks off. I was in Phoenix last week. We were doing an Alice Cooper charity event that went very well, and thank you all for contributing to it, and thank you all for supporting it. And what can I say? It's been going from extreme warmth to extreme cold. So I'm back here at the North Pole. We're trying a couple different things here. Panic in the studio right before. You've heard of Panic at the Disco. There was panic in the studio right before we started. So I did a quick camera change and a quick reboot, and hopefully this is all looking good. You ready to start? I am. But if you're listening to us on one of the audio broadcasts, of course, you wouldn't know any of this because you're listening to our voices. But what we really want you to do is go to our YouTube official channel, and we will put that subscribe button up one more time. This is your first time watching. Hit that subscribe button right there so you guys can be part of our Live in the Trenches shows, our live streams. Of course, you can watch them on delay as well or listen to them like you are right now. And the good thing about being live, though, is you're in the chat. And you get to see the delays that happen. We went on a little bit late, like a rock show. Well, not completely Axl Rose time, but close. You ready? Here we go. I was initially turned on to our guest by Alice Cooper guitarist Tommy Hendrickson. You all know Tommy, right? Well, first I went out and checked out his Instagram page and posts, which question reality, religion, and even the existence of our beloved internet. Yes, that very same internet that you are using to watch our show right now. I immediately knew he'd be great to have on the podcast so all of you, real or not, could experience our guest because he's agreed to meet us in the trenches. The founder of Hyperianism, a shock artist, and we just shall discover what else. Would you please welcome into the trenches, Morgue. Hello, Morgue.
Ryan, nice to be here. That was quite an introduction. I appreciate it.
Yeah, a little verbose, maybe a little bit too much garrulous ranting. I'm trying to make sure, just trying to make sure the internet is going to cooperate with us. The last couple of weeks, we've had the internet gods. If there is a god, there's an internet god. They haven't been cooperating with us. So I don't know.
I know how that goes. I was doing a stream the other day, and when it went out, I had to, just switch over to my phone and do it all from the cellular. So, that's just the price you have to pay when dealing with this sort of thing.
But it is because of the internet that I was turned on to you and I discovered you. I'm not sure if you know our guitarist, Tommy Hendrickson, also plays in the Hollywood Vampires, as well as his own solo stuff. But he was the one that said, Roxie, you got to check out this guy Morgue. He has some really good stuff. You got to hear it. So I don't know if you've ever had it.
Well, it sounds like he has very good taste. I don't know him personally, but I've follow him on Instagram. I think we follow each other, and he seems like an awesome guy. So. Yeah, that's great.
Let me ask you this. Are you a musician? Because I know that we have a lot of musicians on the program first and foremost, but then we have other people on the podcast that might dabble dilettante as they would with music, but they're not pro musicians. But then we have some people that are just music lovers. Do you play an instrument yourself?
No, I actually don't. So I don't have any sort of musical background or anything like that. I played keyboard for a year or two, but nothing serious. But music has had a very big influence on my life and has a lot to do with who I am today. So it's shaped a big part of me. It's one of the first things that actually started getting me to question reality was music. In particular, it was because I had a very strict religious background, religious household, religious upbringing. And I remember that one of the things when I started becoming I don't remember, 11, 12, something like that. My grandmother brought over this DVD that was supposed to scare children away from like satanic rock music. It was called like The Evils of Satanic Music. And
You should definitely find it somewhere on the internet. I was going to say, was it an Alice Cooper video?
No, No, it was like Black Sabbath, and I forget who else, but it was in that vein, right? Very, very, very similar to those sort of artists. And I remember seeing that and thinking, wow, this is amazing. Because previously I've only been exposed to, like church music. And so that's not particularly too interesting or whatnot. So being exposed to this kind of music really exposed me to, vibrant artists expressing themselves on stage and really, putting themselves out there. Because to me, that music, art in general, true music and true art, in any kind of art, is where you are externalizing yourself. You're taking what's internal and making it external, and being able to see that happen is really what made me start because this was deemed as evil, but I was seeing this beautiful expression, and so that was one of the things that really started this. So from there I started looking into philosophy. I started looking into scientific theories, things like that. So it was a big step for me.
Well, that's a perfect way to segue into our first part of the show, which is we always go back to get forward. So, Vic, you want to hit that? So we're talking here with Morgue. He is the founder of Hyperianism and also a shock artist. How do you say that? A freak shock artist, would you say? Or what is the actual title for it?
You know what? I mean, there isn't really one. You can call me whatever you want. I don't care. Some people are really picky, but you can call me a shock artist. A lot of people call me an extreme stunt artist, sideshow performer, freak show performer. All of the above is applicable.
When did that fascination to become a performing extreme stunt artist take hold of you?
Well, I always wanted to be a performer. Before I was an extreme stunt artist, I was a magician. But what really started getting me into stunt performing was overcoming limitations. So, everything that I do is about pushing boundaries. So I like to say that I'm about exploring the limits of the human body and the limitlessness of the mind. And when it comes to, pushing yourself and overcoming boundaries, I have this very Nietzschean take on, the great philosopher Nietzsche was all about constantly overcoming obstacles, pushing yourself and becoming the best, most expressed, most actualized version of yourself you can be. And so what really started me off with this is that I had this aversion to hypodermic needles. Very bad. If I would get any kind of shot or anything like that, I would pass out. I had a phobia, was terrified of needles.
There has to be a phobia name for that if you're afraid of needles, because I've constantly been, since a little kid, drawing blood, anything like that. Yeah. I was the same way.
Yeah, so I'm sure you can relate. It's for those who have that, it's terrifying. Again, I'd pass out and all that. So what I started doing was piercing myself every day to overcome that obstacle, get over that fear, and I took it, really, really far, where I started doing deep tissue piercing, which is where you go like in through the center of the bicep muscle and out the other side. You'll do things like go underneath the tongue and out the bottom of the jaw with long spinal needles. And so obviously I didn't have a problem anymore. But this sort of kicked off the whole idea of exploring, I was very interested in fear as well. Fear, pain, mixing pain and pleasure. Like, what are the boundaries? What are the limitations? Like, where does pain start? Where does it stop? Where does pleasure begin? Where is it just a mindset? What is fear? All these different things. And this is what really started me to get into more, just keep pushing further with learning sword swallowing. I do acts like with a meat hook, where I put it in my nose and twist it so it comes out my mouth. A lot of very extreme stunts. And since I've always wanted to be a performer, I integrated that. Yes, excellent photo. I integrated that with my onstage presence. I started out as a street performer.
So obviously you had to gravitate to either a geographical spot or or a group of people that you felt accepted in this group. And where was that? And where did you learn most of your tricks? Was it through live performance, or would you like really study the art before you'd actually do it? Or was there any of these extreme stunts you just went out and said, you know what, I'm going to go for it?
Well, I'm all self-taught. So, no one taught me this. And this isn't really a thing that you can, you can't go out and buy a DVD, how to sword swallow or something. At least I don't think you can. I haven't checked. But so I'm all self-taught with all these different acts. There was never any group that I was a part of. I've always been an outlier in that way. So basically, I did live in Montana though. So I lived in Montana, and I realized that, hey, if you want to be a performer, you got to go, cows don't make a great audience. They're not appreciative of these sorts of things. So I moved to Los Angeles. And
so if you want to be a rock and roller, an actor, or a sword swallower, LA is the place.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great image here. And so if anyone's wondering, people ask, how is sword swallowing possible? Well, that's a great video right there. And you can see that it goes all the way down into the stomach. And you can even get to a point, if you use a longer sword, where it goes into the bottom of the intestine as well. So that was where I really started performing. And again, like I said, I'm all self-taught. Don't try any of this shit at home. It's extremely dangerous. You'll die if you try it. So.
I was actually told that part of the reason why you name yourself Morgue was because if you try any of the stunts that you have done in the past, you might end up in a morgue. Is that true?
That is one reason. I think a more apropos reason is I associate with the death tarot card death is a transitory phase. When something ends, it makes way for something new to begin. So death, morgue is always associated with transitory phases. But yeah, if you're on TV, it's a lot quicker and snappier to be like, yeah, it's because if you try what I do, you'll die. So that works as well.
You got on TV. It was Venice Beach's Freakshow.
Yes, right.
I think it was on the AMC channel as well.
That's right.
During that whole time, was it before, during, after that you were coming up with the fundamentals of Hyperianism, and when did you decide to release it to the public?
Yeah, I was developing it pretty much the entire time. I was writing my first book, I believe, while we were in the middle of filming my first book called The Metaphorical Suicide, which is about destroying your old self so you can be free to create your new self. And so I was constantly developing this. And this is the whole reason why I did a TV show to begin with. I don't give a shit about reality TV show. I don't fucking care about reality TV. I just did that because, you get a bigger audience. And, if you want to make change, you have to have an audience, you have to have a platform. So it was during that time that I was developing it.
And was this show, were you one of the creators of the show, or did they just see you on Venice Beach and say, hey, you're part of it? Or was this your gang of performers that you put together? How did that show work?
No. So basically, it's a great show, by the way. I'm not knocking the show. The show is really cool. I'm just saying, reality TV in general, it's not my forte. But so yeah, I was a street performer. So I performed in Huntington Beach, Venice Beach, Hollywood Boulevard, all over California. And so I was a street performer on Venice Beach, and I did some particular stunts that are very, very rare. I do this one where you take a billiard ball, or snooker ball, whatever you want to call it. You take it and you swallow it down into the stomach, and then you bring it back up again, or a steel ball like that. And that's a very rare act. I believe at the time there was only 3 people in the world, including me, that did that.
But the difference is you're self-taught with this.
That's correct. Yeah. Yeah.
And is that just trial and error? Is it just looking at any, did you have, I have guitar heroes, right? Ace Frehley, Eddie Van Halen, Randy Rhoads. Do you have any extreme stunt performers that you looked up to, or were at least, you don't have to say ripping them off, but paying homage to them? For instance,
there are individuals who had done some of the acts that I have done before. Like the other individual who did the regurgitation was a performer named Stevie Starr, who's an awesome performer. Someone else from I can't remember I don't know who it is actually, but no, these aren't any people I knew or talked to or knew in any capacity other than they've been on TV a couple times.
Right.
But
Okay.
yeah, but when you are learning these things, and because you can't. There's no book on this, right? So it is trial and error. You have to learn your anatomy. It takes a very, very long time. I've been to the ER before, learning that stunt. I had to go to the emergency room for getting, an object lodged in my esophagus. So it's very dangerous, very, very dangerous. Yeah, it's a long time. People don't know because you go up there and you do it, but people don't know that's, like a couple of years training to be able to do these things.
Absolutely. So when was it that you decided to be off from the show and then concentrate most of your time with Hyperianism?
Well, basically what happened, like I said, I've been developing it for a while. And what happened was that I was, in addition to the freak show, the TV show, it was an actual location at Venice Beach, and it ended up closing down. So when it closed down, that it's unfortunate. It sucks. It was a great place. It was one of the very last living freak shows, brick and mortar freak shows in the world, where you could go see live animals and a stage show and everything like that. And what happened was that once it closed and once it shut down, which is tragic and unfortunate, but it gave me time to be able to focus on creating. And I really started to use video as a modality and social media as a modality to get things out there.
Right. Do you think that part of the reason why the whole freak show closed down is sort of a evolution of where we're actually at in 2021, where everything's so politically correct and everything is you can't offend anybody? And what was the reason, do you think, that whole thing shut down?
Well, the freak show shut down because I don't know why I should. A large social, this is what I heard. A large social media company, who will remain nameless, bought up a ton of businesses all on the boardwalk. And so it wasn't because it wasn't making money or because there was a problem or anything like that. It was literally because this huge company bought out the building and there was nothing anyone could do about it. It was just one of those things where you just had to leave because they didn't own the space. They were renting it. And and that's why I think it's a Starbucks now. And that's like, how fucking
you just named
is that? No, it wasn't a Starbucks, but
the thing is, though, Morgue, you have this following from the TV show. You have this book now, and now you have Hyperianism.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? Is it a guy with a bunch of very different ideas? Is it a cult? Is it a new religion? Is it, what are you viewing Hyperianism as? What do you see it as?
Mm-hmm. Well, many people call it all these different things, whether you call it a cult or religion or philosophy. A lot of people have different words for it and different terms for it. And look, when you get down to it, these words are very ill-defined. How do you define a religion? How do you define a cult? Everyone calls it something else. The true definition of a religion or a cult is something completely different than how it's used colloquially. But what it truly is in itself, without these weird, labels being thrown around and people trying to make it seem like something evil and scary and all that, what it really is a knowledge system based on reason that reveals through reason and rationality the nature of existence and aims to elevate humanity into a new level of consciousness. So what we want to do is we want to change the world by changing humanity, and via logic and reason, and helping humanity reach literally the next stage of awareness, which is a level past self-awareness, what we call hyper-awareness.
And mathematics play a huge role in this. At least what
Absolutely.
like I said, I did a deep dive, and I'm not going to be, I'm going to be really honest and not say that I know everything about it at all.
Certainly.
But I did do a pretty deep dive of what it's about. You do say that mathematics do play a big part of it. You actually cite Euler's formula,
Mm-hmm.
I guess Euler's formula for being one of the more important parts. How does math? Because what I could gather
Mm-hmm.
is that you're saying that perhaps our bodies are all not our bodies. They're more creations of within our mind.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So this is what I just wanted to get through, tying in you being an extreme performance artist and the Hyperianism. If you're putting hooks through your body, does the body actually exist? Or was that why you were able to do those things with your body? Because you didn't view pain the same way that others would? How do
Oh, yeah. It's a lot of mind over matter. And see, like, here's the thing is that a lot of performers that also do sideshow stunts like that, that perhaps do piercings or things like that. What they will do is they will do some kind of meditative technique or trance or whatever you want to call it to block out the pain. But not me. I wouldn't do that because I wanted to feel the pain. I wanted to experience it, and I wanted to feel alive because, I mean, why else are we here but to feel and experience? And why would I want to block that out? So, but a lot of it is mind over matter. Exactly in that case is that I didn't view it as something negative or bad. It wasn't something horrible. It was to be alive, like in ancient Greece. You have the Dionysian mysteries, the Dionysian mystery cults, and this is how we get today modern rock shows come from the Dionysian mystery cults, because it would be this gathering of individuals, and they would use narcotics, alcohol, drugs, things like this. They would play music, the beating of the drums, and they would incorporate sex, orgy, and pain. Basically, all the different sensory stimulants that you could possibly imagine. Auditory, visual, pleasure, pain, sex, all this, until it started to sort of merge into this one experience. And they would, say that this was them feeling the God within, that they would, through that, become divine, and that they were, reaching a transcendent moment through the blending of all experiences. So
sounds like a Motley Crue tour in the late 80s, basically.
I think I would have liked it then if I could have been there.
Just so you know, you could actually audition as a lead singer for any band, I think, and you definitely get the call back. Just image alone, but then you start, giving your ideas, and dude, lead singer written all over. I got it. Do you have a voice? You sing?
I actually considered getting into music for a while. I considered it, and I was very, very tempted, but it was kind of like music or, doing this movement and philosophy, because you're only so limited with time, right? So that was something that I love performing. I love being in front of a crowd. I love art. I love expression. So in another life, perhaps.
Movement. I like the way you put it. Philosophy. Yeah. Those are all the connotations of those words don't sound as harsh as when someone says cult, someone says religion. People immediately,
that comes from our detractors. Yeah.
Hair gets up, and there are detractors. I wanted to get into that a little bit, because I wanted to find out how you deal with that, because with anything, whether it's people not liking your band, people growing up not liking your image or whatever, you're going to get that door sort of shoved in your face, and you got to kick it open again. But I actually went on to check out some of the critics that have challenged Hyperianism. TJ Kirk, aka the Amazing Atheist,
right.
Count Jacula. How do you respond to some of these people, or do you just brush it off as something? Vic, our producer, got a photo of I guess TJ Kirk. Was that him?
I think that was him.
All right.
I haven't seen his videos other than one that he put out. So basically what it comes down to it is that anything that I have ever seen that is criticizing us is completely laughable, because you can tell that they don't know anything about us, because their criticisms don't apply, because you can tell that they're just assuming that we're some sort of, like, say, new age mystical movement, or some sort of like dealing with like the occult or something like that. They don't actually take the time to look into what we're actually saying. And so it's really neither here nor there, because their criticisms don't stick, because they're not even addressing what we're talking about. There was a whole article on some website, and just to put out this point, I did a video, taking line by line at all their criticisms and going, this is none of it was anything we actually, none of it are even positions that we hold or things that we say, or they're gross misunderstandings, so it's a big waste of time, really. And it doesn't bother me. I mean, hey, it's more exposure. I don't care.
How you've been growing this now for how long? Like, when would you say you established the Hyperianism philosophy and said, I'm putting it out to the world?
It really hasn't been too long. That's what's really exciting about it, is that we're growing very quickly, and, actually seriously putting it out there and starting it. I can't, don't quote me on this, because I don't know precisely. But I would say maybe like 4 years, something like that. That it's been out there under the name Hyperianism, and something that people can find and join.
Yeah.
I could be off by a year, but something along those lines. And that's another thing that I want to say, is that though I am the founder of Hyperianism, like the mathematical system that we use, that's very important to Hyperianism, is not something that I invented. This is a system known as ontological mathematics, the mathematical aspect that you mentioned, which started with Pythagoras. And then there are many amazing contemporary pioneers, such as philosophers like Hockney and Thomas Stark, that are have worked on and developed this. So it's sort of like Hyperianism is the system that I have founded, and then within that system we use ontological mathematics to as sort of the core, sort of like as science has the mathematical physicist aspect of cosmology, or whatever you
perhaps you are the Les Paul to Gibson of what Mike Hockney is to you. There's
I don't know who that is, so I forgive me for
well, it's a Gibson Les Paul. All the musicians listening to us right now will understand the analogy.
I'll take your word for it.
I did you do quote Carl Jung a lot,
yes,
as well,
Jung is
as someone
very important. So that's the thing with Hyperianism, right? Even though that I'm the founder of Hyperianism, I guess what I'm trying to say is that what Hyperianism is a synthesis of many different ideas together, right? So we take like Jung, Hegel, Nietzsche, etc. Whereas normally you would think that like Hegel and Nietzsche would be opposed to each other, but we take all these different ideas where it's Jung, Hegel, Nietzsche, Stark, Hockney, and Spinoza, Descartes, all these different philosophers, all these different systems. And not even just relegated to philosophy, but even some ideas that might be regarded occult or whatnot, but all under logic and reason, and synthesized and filtered together through reason, through rationality, and through mathematics.
I want to talk more about the differences of what it is to whether it's opposed to traditional religion, which I know it is, which if it's opposed to traditional science, which I know it is, but I want you to explain why in our second half. We're going to take a really quick break right now because you know what? We got new headphones and microphones from our sponsor, Beyerdynamic. So we feel that we'd like to let them have a couple seconds to talk about it, but then we'll come back with more with Morgue, if that's cool with you. And thank you for hanging out here today on In the Trenches. If this is your first time checking it out, hit that subscribe button, and we will be right back. In the live chat, you're very lively today. Thank you very much. Morgue, we'll be right back, okay? About 45 seconds. Hit it. Hello, Ryan Roxie here, host of the In the Trenches podcast, and I also play guitar for Alice Cooper. I just wanted to take a second to talk about what mic you're hearing me speak through and what headphones I choose to listen to all my audio with. My go-to podcast and live performance mic is this TG V70 dynamic vocal mic. And when I'm recording acoustic stuff, I'll always mic it up with the Beyerdynamic M160 double ribbon mic. I listen to everything with the DT 1770 Pro headphones unless I'm out and about. That's when the Eventho wireless headphones really make listening to music, podcasts, or any other audio app that's on my phone ultra high fidelity and latency free. Check out their official site or the links below in the description of this video to find out more about what makes Beyerdynamic a musician's choice in pro audio mics and headphones. Now, let's get back into the trenches for some more rock and roll. Enjoy the show. Enjoy the ride. That was quick and painless, and thank you very much, Beyerdynamic, for giving us the new mics and the new headphones. So hopefully you can hear me, and I can hearing Morgue just fine, because we are deep diving into Hyperianism as well as all things that are Morgue. You have a lot of, I wouldn't say that the Instagram page is filled with so much Hyperianism. You just have a lot of small sort of snippets that grab the attention like right away, and I wanted to talk about a few of those. But first, let's get into Hyperianism, the differences between that and science. And according to you, that Hyperianism sort of rejects science in some ways, and the three different things that Hyperianism is based on: mathematical, rationalism, deductive. And where science is sense data, empiricism, and induction. So being that rationalism and empiricism are exact opposites, that would seem natural that you would oppose science. But what are the correlations? If you oppose traditional religion and you oppose science, how does Hyperianism stand on its own?
Right. So here's the thing. You kind of have this false dichotomy. People usually think, oh, you're either religious or you're like an atheistic scientist, materialist. There's sort of this false dichotomy. It's either an either and or. And the thing is, we're neither. We are not religion, because religion is based on faith. We reject faith. We're rationalists. And then science are empirical. They deal with empirical data. the empirical stance is that knowledge is derived from the senses. So our stance is of a rationalist stance, whereas knowledge is derived from pure reason. Now, I want to say right off the bat, when we say we reject science, it doesn't mean that we think that science is not effective. Science is great. Science is fantastic. They have advances in technology, advances in medicine. I'm able to talk to you right now because of the advancements in science. We have all these kind of medical advancements. Science is fantastic for making practical and pragmatic and useful things in the physical world. However, what we deal with in Hyperianism, especially with regard to our system of ontological mathematics, deals with what reality is. So what science deals with is how things work. They build models. So, for example, a scientist might tell you how charge works and how charge affects, the attraction and repulsion of, say, electrons. Whereas what we do is we ask, what is charge? What are electrons? What is the foundational nature of reality? And when you're asking these sorts of questions, you can no longer rely simply on empiricism and induction, because empiricism and induction relies on sense data and experimentation, where you can use reason to understand that reality is actually mathematical and not based on, sensory matter. Matter, the existence of matter cannot account for something like consciousness. This is known as the hard problem of consciousness. Science cannot in any way, in any capacity, explain the thing that you are most familiar with, which is your own subjectivity. So in a nutshell, science deals with sense data and empiricism. We deal with reason, right? We are the champions of logic, reason, and mathematics. Science uses experimentation, empiricism, and induction. It's with the sense. So whereas religion is faith, science goes with senses, we go with reason, mind, mathematics.
Okay. That's a lot to sort of digest in just one city.
I'm stopping short because I could keep going, but
I know you can, but guess what? You have our chat very much intrigued right now. The comments are flying in and out. Part of these viewpoints and part of these philosophies that you have led you to put out a lot of content that is challenging for a lot of people to accept. And
Yes.
One of them is the dead internet theory. And I wanted you to explain a little bit about that, because it's one of those things that I've thought a lot about many times, that, the people that we are putting this show out to, the people that I'm posting out to, how many of those people are actually real? Because we know about bots. Anybody that's YouTube personality or someone that wants to gain more followers, that there are going to be fake accounts and bots and some people trying to hack your account as well. I've had many Ryan Roxie fake accounts as well. But tell us how that all started and where this dead internet theory came from.
Yeah. So the dead internet theory is this sort of theory that some people on the message board just started. It's kind of like this creepypasta sort of thing. And so the whole idea of dead internet theory is that, 5 years ago or whatever, the internet as you know it stopped existing. Most of the people on the internet now are bots, and most of the websites are AI generated, et cetera, et cetera. Now, do I actually believe that? No, that's a little extreme. However, I think by looking at that, we can see that it's actually not that far from the truth, in that, as dealing with social media as you do, and you mentioned, having all these fake accounts and things, that bots are out there. It's extremely effective. And you can, basically the idea is that most of what you see on the internet is fake. Not that people are literally bots. Some of them are, but that you can do things like you can buy fake likes, because people will buy hundreds of thousands of likes for their videos because they'll know people will be more inclined to watch a video.
And tell people where that started from. Originally started, you said that started from IO games.
Yeah. So I use .io games as an example. So .io games are these games that I'm not sure when they were developed, but basically there are these video games, very simple games that were developed that were meant to be multiplayer games. And so what people did was they realized if you're a new developer and you make this game and it's supposed to be a multiplayer game, but no one knows who you are, you're going to be the only person in your multiplayer game. And then no one's going to keep playing it because it's a very boring game. So what they did was they said, hey, well, what we'll do is we'll put bots in the game. We'll populate it with bots, but we won't tell people they're bots. We'll make them seem like real people. That way people will jump in, and then more people will come in. They'll have fun with the game. But what they ended up realizing is it was so effective. They were like, hey, we can just leave the bots in here and just say that it's multiplayer, but it'll actually be a single player game. And it was very successful. Tons of people love these games. I think,
easier to actually program as a single player game, right?
Well, you don't have to deal with things like, servers and networks and having to do with, processing data across the internet and all that. If it's, single player, there's a lot less, hair pulling needed. There's a lot less,
And they could throw a deep fake saying that, oh, you've been logged off for a second, and to make you feel like it's, you're part of this multiplayer world, where in reality you might not be multiplaying with anybody, just a bunch of bots.
Exactly. That game, certain games would, if your internet went out or you disconnected your Wi-Fi, it'd go, oh, your internet's out, you've been logged off. But it didn't matter. It was just to convince you that it was precisely an online game.
I just want everyone to know that on In the Trenches podcast, when our internet goes off, it really fucking goes off. And like 2 minutes before our show started, and I had to get a new computer. So obviously I am not a bot, but I don't know. I have to question myself, because you made me question it on one of your shorts that's on the Instagram page and your YouTube page, which we'll get to your contacts in a second. But you said there's basically 5 types of people to test if you are a bot or not.
Yes.
And
yes.
Those 5 types I thought were very interesting. The first one you said was tradition directed. Now, can you explain to people what tradition directed people are?
Yeah, sure. And just before we do that, I just want to reiterate, because, some people out there might think that I really believe people are robots or something like that. I don't believe that. I don't think the internet's fake. This is just an analogy that I use. When I say that people are bots, I'm saying that, people have been so conditioned or programmed by society and culture that it is though they are robots. I don't people will take what I say out of context.
But a lot of people walk around like they're in a dream.
Exactly.
Like
precisely.
And like you use the analogy of going from your home to work, and somehow some days you don't even realize how you got there. You're just kind of in a program. But I'm saying you're in reality, but you're actually asleep.
Precisely, because this is your unconscious. That's basically the programming that's behind the scenes that you're not aware of at all, but it dictates your actions, even though you're unaware of it. And that's the big part of Hyperianism, is we're trying to wake people up. And the big part of it is making the unconscious conscious, so that you can be your own programmer, so you can hack yourself, so to speak, and not just be a copy and a clone dictated by something that you aren't even aware exists in the first place.
It's a bit similar to the we were texting a couple days earlier about Vadim Zealand and reality transurfing, which I don't talk too much about people. There's a few people that are in the chat right now that know about my sort of association with reality transurfing. But yeah, it has that sort of waking up experience in real life, Wow, you even got that. That's very interesting, Vic, that you got that. I didn't even tell you to put that up there. Take it down now. What are you doing? We're talking about, we got Morgue on. Vadim is not on our show right now. But let's go on to these 5 types. You had tradition directed, which you can explain these 5 types of personalities to check if you yourself are a bot or not.
Yeah, so tradition directed people are those who are directed by basically like religions, right? So if you're directed by traditions, religion, culture, if instead of thinking for yourself, you are doing something that in ancient holy texts, tells you how to behave, or in ancient tradition, or how your culture tells you that you should behave. If you're doing any of these things, then you are a tradition directed person. You aren't actually being directed by your own volition.
And then what about other directed? That would be a second type.
So other directed people are those who are directed by basically like what's popular, the crowd, their peers. You know, the worst thing that they hate is being unpopular, not part of the in crowd, not trendy. So what they're always doing, they're trying to keep up with all the trends. They're trying to be popular. They want to see what all the cool kids are doing. They want to wear all the in clothing. So they are directed by others, the crowd, what is popular.
A bit more of the herd mentality, sort of.
Yes, exactly.
Inner directed. That would be a third type.
So inner directed people are those who are directed by their sort of like an inner moral compass that have been instilled in them since birth by their parents. So this is essentially the type of person who are directed by parental values and family values, even if those values are perhaps detrimental, or they're basically obsessed with family and family values, even to a detriment, even if those are, not good or positive to them.
So far, I see all three of those directed personalities part of my own upbringing that I've sort of been evolving on my journey. The fourth would be anomics.
So anomics, now this is kind of an interesting personality type. So anomics are those that sort of reject all this, but they can't basically cope, right? They've kind of broken down. And so they reject all, they're not necessarily any of these other categories, but they find it very hard to keep a job. They've, often struggle with like addiction, or they turn to crime or something of this nature. So they have sort of rejected these different aspects of society or tradition or whatnot, but now the weight of the world is sort of too much for them and they're crushed under it.
I'm 4 for 4 at this point, Mark, except for the, I don't have a life of crime, unless you say doing this podcast is a crime, right? Because it's so good, right, audience? No, but the fifth type, and I think this is what you mean, if you are a bot or not, is to be autonomous.
Yeah. So an autonomous individual is someone who is self-empowered, self-directed. This is like the Nietzschean Übermensch mentality of creating your own values, living life according to your own rules. You don't care about, religion. You don't care about family values. You don't care about the in crowd. Not that any of these things are necessarily wrong. If your family taught you something that is actually useful, that's great. But your autonomy allows you to objectively judge whether you want to incorporate that or not, instead of you just automatically subsuming it like some sort of program. You are consciously evaluating everything, and with a conscious attitude, choosing those actions that benefit you, rather than just being like an unconscious program.
So if you agree with Hyperianism, you most probably are autonomous. Right?
Well, I mean, what Hyperianism does, because that might sound kind of like contradictory, right? Like, oh, well, you're autonomous if you believe what we say. But the thing is, right? Well, what Hyperianism attempts to do, the process of Hyperianism, is not so much this is what you should believe. We give people the tools to learn how to think for themselves. And that's the important distinction, is that we give people the ability to think rationally and therefore be able to make the best choices for themselves in their life.
You talk about, at the end of the day, I from what I got out of Hyperianism, the direction is a positive one for humanity. There's others out there. You, like you said, you're one of many that have philosophies and ideas to make the world a more positive place. I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Joseph, who directed Zeitgeist and a series of movies that had an endum, but Zeitgeist was a very important film for me many years ago that sort of opened a lot of ideas for me. But when you say that you have this idea that it is a positive thing, but it doesn't mean that there's unconditional love with Hyperianism.
You're saying that there is not such a thing as unconditional love in Hyperianism? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, we do not preach unconditional love, because that would not be rational. Love is something that, so basically in Hyperianism, we look at love as a unifying function, because everything is ultimately mathematical, even love. So you can have think of love as a unifying function, and something as hatred as a fragmentation or a separation function. So what happens is that we want to create a world of love. That's what we want. But the thing is, if you want to create a new world, love is not how you're going to get there. Love isn't going to change the world. Love is what you get when you change the world. Love isn't going to do that. If someone wants to kill you, you go give them a hug, they're still going to stab you in the back. You can't love the world. That's not going to change the world. Once we change the world, then we will be free to have a world of love.
All right. I like this. I like this talk that we're having. At the end of the day, maybe perhaps love is that self-sustaining energy that, because we haven't found a energy that sort of sustains itself yet. Maybe it is love. It's hey, at the end of the day, love is in the Matrix. Love is the message of the Matrix. Love is the message of the of actually zeitgeist as well. That word comes out, and love is John Lennon's sort of mantra as well. Are you just on an off topic? Is the upcoming Matrix film? Has anything any interest for you? Does that did those movies influence have any sort of weight for you?
The Matrix is a fantastic movie. I'm actually just, I'll probably be releasing a video about The Matrix in a week or so ago on my YouTube channel. So The Matrix is fantastic. It draws its roots from Neoplatonism and Gnosticism that had very, very similar ideas, talking about creation of an illusory world that souls are trapped into, and they have to obtain knowledge that the world is false in order to transcend and return to the real world. So The Matrix is very, very heavily influenced by these ancient philosophical and esoteric traditions. And so, yeah, The Matrix is it's a modern myth, a modern allegory. It's just like instead of we have The Matrix as being a story and a parable that we can learn from, and especially with VR and the metaverse coming up very, very soon, I think it also is sort of a foreshadowing of what could occur if we let corporations take it to a place that would be unpleasant. I'm not against VR or the metaverse. I think it's awesome, potentially. But if corporations have their way, it could be very dystopian, very fast.
It's got to freak you out a little bit. It freaks everybody else. But you're not freaked out by it. But let me ask you, in
general, or I'm excited.
Do you own a VR?
Oh, absolutely. I've got one right down here. Yeah.
Oculus 2. There it is. And we're not even endorsed by them yet. But okay, I got you.
But see, exactly the reason why is it, VR is it's sort of like social media. We're able to connect right now because of social media. And social media, though, can be extremely toxic. Facebook and certain companies, they design their apps to be addictive and to just keep you glued to it. They don't care about you or your health. However, I will use that to spread information. So you can bet sure as hell I have a VR headset, because I'm going to be in there first thing.
You're on the ground floor.
Figuring out how I can use this to spread information.
Right. Well, I'm trying to spread people playing guitar. That's what I've done with System 12 and the method that we've put together, a guitar learning method, because I think people make it too hard to play guitar. They make it seem like it's too hard to play guitar, and we've really simplified it with it. And if we can get our message out, I've thought early on, like years ago when we were developing the system, that this would be actually really cool for VR. Because at some point there is going to be virtual guitar instructors out there. So maybe in a few years we'll be doing a VR interview together, in the metaverse. You'll be a singer of a band by that time. You will have
nice.
So, wow. Okay, so you're not fearing the metaverse. I'll tell you what I fear when I see. The only thing I fear most is the commercials. The commercials seem like dystopian, weird things with people going this to like weird jungle cats, and all of a sudden we are all just in this meta world where we're not in what we think is the real world. Because
I don't see this as a real world, so I don't. It's just another.
Yeah, so this could be just another simulation.
Another layer. Yeah. I don't literally believe this is a simulation, but I believe it's a mental construct. So, it's just another layer. The metaverse, I don't like that big businesses will be trying to sell you things and keep you addicted and not care about your health. I'm totally against that. But the idea in general, the technology in general, no, I think it's very cool.
Wow. I'm just wondering what the world economy will look like in the metaverse if everybody succumbs to that?
Oh,
What
yeah.
will be the, what will be the sort of the money, the currency? What is the currency in the metaverse?
Well, I'm sure crypto will start to play a very big role. I mean, I think that Meta, Facebook, aka Meta now, is coming up with their own stable coin, their own crypto. They're working on that. So I'm sure transactions in the metaverse will be taking place with tokens.
Wow, we just opened up a whole new can of worms with Meta. But right now, I want to get people to speak because people have been asking questions all week. So I'd like to do a section called Let the People Speak. But first, before we do that, I just want to acknowledge our In the Trenches Fan of the Week segment right now, because we had a great guy that talked about cryptocurrency. I don't know if he paid cryptocurrency for it, but he paid real money for it this last week when we were in Phoenix to Alice Cooper's Solid Rock Foundation. He ended up buying a art piece for Ace Frehley and one of Orianthe's guitar. So our fan of the week goes to Chris Norch. Vic Chalfant, will you run that very quick, please? Fan of the week is Chris Norch. I have played golf with him. I wish there was a way to simulate me playing golf better in this this world that we're living in this current layer, but it's a work in progress. That's how I know I'm not a bot, because I still can't play golf, Morgue.
That's awesome. I didn't get a chance to say. I just want to say that I'm a big fan of Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper was a big inspiration for my performance and everything.
Well, hold that thought, because honestly, hold that thought, because it is time for Let the People Speak. And I think someone actually has a question about that.
Oh, yeah, good.
So here we go. This is where... Thank you, everybody, for joining us on In the Trenches and putting in your questions. Just a couple questions this week, because I know that time, we don't have all the time in the world, or do we? Or is time even a thing anymore here? We're hanging out with Morgue. Time is a construct. I love it. Our first question, though, comes from @Kinga.Anna. Hello, Kinga.Anna. What do you think about exorcisms? Is it a manipulation of someone's brains, an actual spiritual possession, or something more?
Mm-hmm. So we're just talking about, someone being demonically possessed or something. Like, what is that? I mean, that could be a multiple issues. That could have something to do with some sort of mental disorder that the individual has. It could have something to do with an issue going on with their unconscious. It could have to do with like archetype possession, which is archetypes is a concept that Carl Jung really brought out and made popularized, where he discovered these different structures that exist with your unconscious that almost have personalities of their own. So it could, be a case of some sort of archetype, taking hold of someone, or like this. I guess my point is that, is someone actually being possessed by a demon? No, there's no actual demonic possession happening here. It either has something to do with some sort of mental disorder, or you're some sort of unconscious content that is overpowering your consciousness, which can manifest as gods or demons, because your unconscious communicates through archetypes, through symbols, and humanity has developed throughout its history these symbols around things like gods and demons that represent structures of the human mind.
Very well put, Kinga. I hope that answers your question as well. Our next question from Let the People Speak is from @FederRock'n'Roll77. Is there a connection between your makeup and Alice Cooper? Because in a lot of you don't have makeup on right now, as you can tell, as much makeup as I have on, even though it looks like I don't. But in a lot of your videos and content, you do tend to put some eye makeup on one eye.
That's right.
Does that have any correlation with Alice Cooper, or where does that come from?
Right. So I wouldn't say that it's because I get that a lot. Is it Alice Cooper or The Crow? I get as well. And I wouldn't say it's directly inspired by Alice Cooper. Emphasizing one eye has a very important meaning in different esoteric traditions and things like this. Emphasizing one eye has to do with the eye of the universe, the awakening of the consciousness of reality. But however, I will say that when I was developing my makeup and all that, I was heavily inspired by, Alice Cooper, movies like The Crow, etc. So all that was sort of in my unconscious. So it wasn't something I directly said, oh, Alice Cooper did that, I'm going to do that. But
Clockwork Orange as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
So not directly, but Alice Cooper has been a huge inspiration in many other ways.
There you go. So our last question from Let the People Speak this week is from at DF Homemade Studio. Any new projects, releases, or surprises on the horizon?
Yes, actually. Well, good timing. Yeah, so I guess I will. I haven't announced it to anyone except in like my private group, like private Patreon supporters and things like that. So
give us a soundbite, Morgue.
This is, I guess, the first public announcement is that I am actually working on a new book, and this new book will be incorporating. Hyperianism is an extremely vast system, and because it incorporates politics, science, mathematics, cosmology, metaphysics, anything you can think of. So what this new book is going to be about is aggregating all the information in a linear step-by-step fashion. So if someone is interested in Hyperianism, they can pick up the book and it'll be all in one place.
There it is, folks. There's our big Easter egg right now. People, if you're just now tuning in, you have a lot of good content to check out earlier in our In the Trenches episode with Morgue, and he has just divulged some great information about a new book that's coming out. And working title right now, anything?
It's top secret for now.
All right, we'll have to have you on for part 2 for to get the to try and squeeze the name title out of you. But
I'm down.
I love it. There's one more thing I have to talk about for next week that we have. It's been great having Morgue on the podcast right now. And next week we have another author who's actually going to talk about a book that he's putting out. Original drummer of the Alice Cooper band, Neil Smith, will be our guest next week on In the Trenches. So make sure you guys subscribe to the channel right now so you can check that out as well. But I don't know, next week I'll be talking with Neil about his book, but right now we're with Morgue, and I'm sure all of you want to know the best ways to get in touch with Morgue on his social media, his YouTube, and all that stuff. So Vic, can you put up those links and stuff? And can you, Morgue, tell the people that are actually listening and not watching on YouTube, which you should be watching on YouTube, where they can find you and what's the best places to seek Morgue information out?
Yeah, so you can find me on pretty much all platforms under the handle Morgue Official, whether it's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all that. I'm Morgue Official. But if you're looking really to connect with the information that I've been talking about, YouTube is the best place. YouTube is where I upload all my videos. That is, if you want info, go there. The rest of them are fine, but they're just more for, just to have social media because you need it to connect. If you want the info, go to the YouTube page.
There you go. So, I'm telling you, I've gotten a lot of information, but I'm going to need a lot more because I'm going to be going down that Morgue rabbit hole a little bit more after the show in the weeks to come, because I do dig the content that you come out. Thank you, Tommy Hendrickson, for turning me on to you, and good luck with everything that you have coming up in the future. There's one thing that Alice always says to me, and I'll leave it with you. Never let the truth get in the way of a good story. So you can tell me if this is a fact or fiction thing. It's been claimed that you have been in contact with secret societies. Is this true or false?
Well, if I were, I certainly wouldn't say that I had.
So is there a fact or fiction, or is there something in between fact or fiction? So we will never know. So, okay. All right. Well, I guess we'll have to check next time if any of these secret societies have influenced anything that's going on with Hyperianism. Any words, imparting words that you have to live by, to give to our listeners, that you can pass on?
Yeah, I mean, essentially what I want to say is look around you, look at what's going on. I mean, the world is in a shit place, and we need to do something to change it. And it starts with you. It starts with me. I mean, this world can be anything that we want it to be. And it's a nightmare right now. But if we come together, work together, truly and united, we can change this fucked up nightmare into a dream.
I think that's really, really, really nice and concise. I will sum it up with 3 words that I think has the same sort of positive message as you give. Again, thank you very much for being on the podcast, Morgue.
Thanks for having me.
Hang on one more second. Everybody, let's put those links up one last time if anybody wants to go check out Morgue right after this show. But tell a friend about Morgue as well as In the Trenches. And hopefully we will see you next week with Neil Smith. And again, congratulations to Chris Norch as our fan of the week. And thank you as always for Vic Chalfant for putting up all these pictures. I know that you think of this has been taped, but this is definitely not taped because Vic is that good. He's putting up all these photos as we speak live stream. So it's been a really nice one. And I don't know what you had that one for. But Morgue, thank you very much, my friend. And we'll have you on again. And everybody else, thank you for supporting In the Trenches. Until next time, those 3 words of positivity are enjoy the ride. Have a good one.
In the Trenches with Ryan Roxie.